We have some significant breaking news out of the NBA. According to Shams Charania, the Lakers are signing Austin Reaves to a 4-year, $185 million maximum contract to return to the franchise with a player option for the final season. That would be in 2029-2030. Reaves declined his $14.9 million player option for the new max deal.
Austin Reaves has reportedly signed a 4-year, $185 million max contract to stay in Los Angeles, and that single move could quietly reshape the future of the Lakers and potentially signal the end of the LeBron James era with the franchise. Once you break down the numbers and long-term commitments, the direction becomes clearer, as major salary decisions like this naturally impact roster flexibility and future building plans. The deal reportedly includes a player option for the 2029 to 2030 season, locking in a key piece of the Lakers' future core. That's why the reaction has been so intense. Some see it as a smart investment in a rising star, while others believe it shifts the team's priorities away from maximizing the remaining championship window with LeBron James, raising the question of whether this move strengthens the long-term future or accelerates the transition into a post-LeBron Lakers era.
Let's start with the actual deal, because the numbers are the whole story here. Austin Reaves and the Los Angeles Lakers agreed to a 4-year, $185 million max contract.
Austin Reaves is now locked in as a long-term piece of the Los Angeles Lakers, not a stopgap, not a placeholder, but a player the franchise has clearly decided is worth max-level money for the coming years. That decision alone signals where the organization's priorities are shifting, as it commits significant resources to building a core that extends beyond the immediate present. What makes the deal even more interesting is the structure. Reports indicate the contract won't be officially signed until the Lakers complete the rest of their off-season moves, giving them short-term flexibility to operate under the cap before the full financial impact kicks in. In other words, while a deal of this size would normally limit roster flexibility right away, the Lakers have strategically delayed the pressure, preserving space for this summer's decisions before the heavier financial commitment fully takes effect in 2027.
What's up, Lakers fan? Austin Reaves here. I'm from Newark, Arkansas. I can't wait to represent the Lakers organization and just get to it. Let's go.
Let's break down the cap space picture, because this is where the Lakers situation, and by extension LeBron James' outlook, starts to get more complicated. Austin Reaves currently carries a cap hold of $20.9 million on the books, which directly factors into the team's salary cap calculations for this offseason. With that accounted for, the Los Angeles Lakers are projected to have roughly $45 to $50 million in available cap space this summer, according to ESPN's Bobby Marks. On top of that, they also hold a $9.4 million room exception that can be used to sign an additional player. If both DeAndre Ayton and Marcus Smart were to decline their player options, that scenario could free up another estimated $13 million in flexibility. In short, the Lakers aren't locked into a tight financial corner just yet. They still have real spending power this offseason, and how they choose to use it will heavily shape the next phase of their roster construction.
Second round of the NBA draft, a former undrafted player signing a big deal. This is Austin Reaves, who was set to become an unrestricted free agent. He is going to rejoin the Lakers and stay in LA. A $185 million deal, according to ESPN. It's a max deal for the former undrafted free agent who declined a $15 million player option heading into next season. Coming off a career year, he averaged 23.3 points per game. That's the most by an undrafted player since Moses.
But here's the problem, and it's a big one for LeBron James specifically. The Los Angeles Lakers are staring at a crowded free agent picture, with multiple key names potentially hitting the market at the same time. Players like Luke Kennard, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, and Jackson Hayes all represent important roster decisions, and each one would require meaningful financial commitment. Add in the possibility of Marcus Smart also entering the equation and commanding a raise, and suddenly the Lakers are dealing with far more financial priorities than available cap space. What initially looks like $45 to $50 million in flexibility quickly starts shrinking when you divide it across multiple roster needs. And then there's the long-term impact of Austin Reaves' contract structure, which becomes even more significant when you look at the year-to-year escalation. In 2026 to 2027, Reaves is set to earn $41.3 million. That number rises to $44.6 million in 2027 to 2028, and then reaches $47.9 million in 2028 to 2029. As those figures climb, they don't just reflect a rising cap hit, they steadily reduce the Lakers' flexibility to reshape the roster, making each offseason more constrained than the last as financial commitments pile up. And in the final year, with the player option, Austin Reaves would be making $51.2 million, a massive escalating commitment that defines the structure of the deal. It gives the Los Angeles Lakers short-term flexibility, but it steadily tightens the financial screws year by year, turning that contract into a growing anchor on the cap. The key issue is that Reaves' deal doesn't exist in isolation. When you stack it alongside other major obligations, like the $53.4 million owed to Luka Doncic, plus contracts for players such as Jared Vanderbilt at $12.2 million, and additional rookie-scale deals like Bronny James and Edu Thiero, you start to see how quickly the cap space gets consumed before even considering the future of LeBron James, and that's the real turning point in the conversation. The Lakers are effectively building their financial core around Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves as long-term pillars, meaning a huge portion of the cap is already spoken for. In that context, every remaining roster decision becomes tighter, more competitive, and more restrictive, especially as the team tries to balance present contention with long-term structure. There is simply not enough room left to add a $53 to $58 million contract for a 42-year-old on top of that. This is exactly the scenario insiders have been pointing to for weeks. The math was always going to land here. If the Lakers commit long-term money to Austin Reaves at the level they just did, then the remaining flexibility to construct a full contender around LeBron James becomes extremely limited. Once that happens, the conversation shifts quickly from how do we keep everyone to what can realistically fit under the cap without breaking the roster elsewhere. That's the core issue. You cannot simultaneously lock in a max-style deal for Reaves, carry a massive contract for Luka Doncic, fill out the rest of a competitive rotation, and still offer LeBron a near-max deal without sacrificing depth or future flexibility. The salary cap forces a trade-off, and in this structure, something has to give. From a front office perspective, that's why this kind of move is often framed as long-term planning rather than short-term sentiment. It prioritizes sustainable roster construction, even if it comes at the emotional cost of potentially closing the door on a later-stage LeBron run in Los Angeles. The Lakers had to decide who their long-term cornerstones would be, and they chose Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves, both young players who can grow with the franchise and remain productive as their contracts peak. Luka serves as the clear foundation of the team, while Reaves provides perimeter scoring, playmaking, and strong fit next to him, making the investment in both players logical from a basketball standpoint since it aligns with their prime years rather than declining ones. In contrast, committing that same level of money to a 42-year-old LeBron James would mean paying peak salary for a player whose production is expected to decrease over time, which doesn't fit a long-term roster-building strategy. The Reaves contract also adds valuable flexibility, because unlike an aging superstar deal, it can function as a tradable asset in the future, giving the Lakers options to adjust the roster if needed, while still building around their younger core. A 42-year-old LeBron James on a $53 million deal becomes the opposite of a movable asset. No team is realistically absorbing that contract, which means it would effectively lock the franchise into a rigid financial position. From a pure asset management standpoint, committing long-term money to Austin Reaves is seen as the more flexible and controllable move than tying up a massive portion of the cap in an aging superstar. That decision also reshapes LeBron's leverage with the Los Angeles Lakers. His negotiating position has traditionally relied on being indispensable to the franchise's identity and direction, with the expectation that the organization would structure everything around keeping him satisfied. But once the Lakers commit financially to a younger core, anchored by Luka Doncic and Reaves, it signals a shift in priorities. And that new structure, LeBron is no longer the unquestioned centerpiece the franchise is built around. Instead, he becomes a veteran star whose contract must fit within whatever financial space remains. That changes the dynamic from a franchise-led negotiation to a more market-driven decision, where LeBron has to evaluate whether returning at a reduced number makes sense or whether exploring other opportunities becomes a more realistic path. The teams that would realistically want LeBron James at 42 are not going to be offering max-level money. Contenders typically won't commit that kind of salary to a player at the tail end of his career, which leaves LeBron in a very narrow decision window. On one side, he could take a more reasonable contract to stay with the Los Angeles Lakers, remain in a competitive environment, and potentially chase another championship alongside Luka Doncic. On the other side, there are lower-tier or rebuilding teams that might offer him more money, but those situations would be driven more by marketing, ticket sales, and jersey revenue than real title contention. That creates a clear split between financial opportunity and championship opportunity, and at this stage of his career, LeBron would have to decide which matters more. The situation is also complicated by Bronny James, since his presence on the Lakers has been tied closely to the idea of playing alongside his father. If LeBron were to leave Los Angeles, it would also raise questions about Bronny's role and long-term place within the organization, making the decision about free agency not just about LeBron's future, but about his family's situation within the league as well. That family dynamic could absolutely end up being the factor that keeps LeBron James in Los Angeles on a smaller number, even if a bigger offer elsewhere might feel more appealing on paper. At this stage, basketball decisions are often tied to personal and family considerations just as much as contracts and legacy. Zooming out, the broader point that's been building all offseason is that the Los Angeles Lakers have already made a quiet but clear decision about their direction. As former voices like Byron Scott have argued, the franchise should not be committing max-level money to LeBron at this stage of his career. Instead of making that declaration publicly, the Lakers have effectively signaled it through structure by committing long-term resources elsewhere and shaping their cap in a way that doesn't realistically accommodate a full max deal for him anymore. The signing of Austin Reaves becomes the clearest expression of that philosophy. By locking in a younger core and building around it, the Lakers have prioritized continuity and future flexibility over maximizing short-term veteran spending. It's less about words and more about financial architecture, what the roster can and cannot support moving forward, and this shift doesn't exist in isolation. It reflects a wider league reality where contenders are increasingly built around younger, deeper cores. Teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder have emerged as elite contenders through youth and depth. The San Antonio Spurs are building around Victor Wembanyama, and other franchises are aggressively aligning their timelines around emerging stars. In that environment, the Lakers' decisions are part of a larger trend, prioritizing sustainable, long-term competitiveness over aging superteam models. The top of the league is getting younger, faster, and more athletic, and in that environment, the worst possible move the Los Angeles Lakers could make is tying up massive cap space on a 40-something-year-old player. In that context, committing long-term money to Austin Reaves aligns with where the NBA is heading, toward youth, continuity, and sustainability, rather than doubling down on an aging star whose peak years are behind him. The Luka Doncic factor is what ultimately defines the direction. Luka is positioned as the franchise cornerstone, and the roster construction is increasingly shaped around what maximizes his prime years. That means prioritizing perimeter stability, playmaking support, and long-term chemistry alongside him, which Reaves helps provide. From that perspective, every major contract decision becomes interconnected. Allocating a significant portion of future cap space to Luka and Reaves limits the ability to also absorb a max-level deal for LeBron James, while still filling out critical needs like rim protection, wing depth, and front-court balance. In effect, the Lakers' roster-building choices reflect a clear hierarchy. Build around Luka first, support him with complementary pieces like Reaves, and preserve flexibility to address remaining roster needs. That naturally shifts the franchise's priorities toward the future core, even if it indirectly reduces the space for a late-career LeBron centerpiece role. And that, in the Lakers' view, is the correct choice for any franchise serious about its future. There were also reports suggesting Luka Doncic may have grown increasingly impatient with the team's lack of major roster moves, and the signing of Austin Reaves helps address that concern. It signals to Luka that the front office is committed to building a stable, competitive core around him rather than simply maintaining the status quo or waiting on the remaining years of LeBron James. From a franchise perspective, keeping a cornerstone player engaged and confident in the direction of the team is often more valuable than maximizing short-term sentiment with an aging superstar. In that sense, the Lakers are clearly prioritizing the relationship that shapes the next decade over the one that defines the final years of a legendary career that leaves LeBron in a very different position than he's been used to. For much of his career, he has been the central force dictating roster direction and organizational urgency. Now, with the Lakers' financial commitments set and a Luka Reaves foundation established, that dynamic has shifted. The remaining cap space must be distributed across multiple roster needs, leaving no realistic path to a full max deal without compromising depth and competitiveness. So the decision becomes unavoidable. Take a reduced number to remain in Los Angeles and pursue one more title alongside a younger core, or explore other opportunities that prioritize either salary or different team context. And in that sense, the Reaves contract didn't just reshape the roster, it forced the larger LeBron Lakers timeline into the open. The insider reports suggest there is simply not enough money left under the cap to keep everyone happy, and the Austin Reaves signing is the moment that turned that problem into a concrete reality for the Lakers. Whether LeBron James stays on a reduced deal or eventually moves on, the franchise is no longer being shaped around him the way it once was, as the Lakers have now shifted toward building around a younger core led by Luka Doncic and Reaves. That $185 million commitment didn't just secure Reaves as a long-term backcourt piece, it also gave the team a tradable asset and a clear, math-based reason to prioritize future flexibility over maximizing spending on a 42-year-old star. With Luka, Reaves, and multiple roster needs competing for cap space, there is no clean path to a LeBron max contract without sacrificing depth, and that reality marks a turning point where the Lakers have effectively chosen their next era and quietly moved beyond the idea of being built entirely around LeBron.